This activity is called ICU and I See Me. It is a critical look at our families, the ways they have influenced us, and also the ways that we have influenced them. As we begin this activity, I want you to think about a couple things. Number one, what we want to do is celebrate you as an individual. But we also know that individuals are also part of a collective, whether it is a family of choice, um, a gathering of friends, some other group that you're part of, or the family of birth, the group that you were born into. Those connections have impacted you in some way. And it is a really beautiful process when you can look at those connections, understand how you've been influenced by them, or also understand maybe some gaping holes or wounds that you have suffered as a result of the peace that doesn't exist with those who've influenced us the most. It's almost like this process is gazing into a mirror and seeing you in the reflection of your family and seeing your family in the reflection of you. This will be a deep look, and I think it'll be also an insightful look. So as we do that, let's get started by pulling out a blank piece of paper. And what I'd like you to do is to create, if you will, a table. And it's going to have 5 columns going across. And if you like, 5 rows going down. So you'll end up having 25 spots in your table. This one on the screen only has 15, but you can do 25. And so what we want you to do is in the very center of that chart that you've created, we want you to put your name, because at the heart of your family is you. You play a central role. We've often said that when the central person in the family heals, the whole family heals. And the only person you have control over is you. And therefore, you play a central role in any relationship that you have. And so what we're going to do from here is really chart out those relationships and those people who exist in our family. As we do that, up in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a circle and a square. To make it a little easier, what you do is you'll write a circle, you'll make a circle, and that'll include a female person on your family tree. And if you make a square, that indicates a man. Visually, when you look at it, you'll just easily be able to see the men and the women in your chart. And so what we want you to do is you're at the center of the chart. And the first thing that we want you to do is on the row above yourself, you're going to write a circle or a square to denote your father and a circle to denote your mother. And when I say father and mother, what I really want you to do is to indicate those people by birth, but you may have more than the people who gave birth to you. Many of us have parental figures in the sense that we were raised by someone who may not be technically our father or mother, but we thought of them as such. An example is I often have groups of cousins that perhaps were raised by their grandparents. So their grandparents weren't just their grandparents, but they played a parental role. In my own life, I've had aunts who were in a role that was like a parental figure. And so on this line, I might put an aunt or uncle or godmother or godfather who really played an integral role in my life, or somebody who was missing from my life that I wish had played. So here on this line above your name, you're going to write your parents' names, one in each block. And then you'll also write any other parental figures. And if you like, put a square to indicate a male and a circle to indicate a female. But this is totally up to you, so you don't have to if you don't want to. On the line that you have parents, the line above it is where you would write any grandparents or any grandparent-like figures. And so here, even if you never knew your grandfather or grandmother, being able to indicate these are the grandparents who were in my life. And it might be grandparents by birth or grandparents by election, because that person just stepped up and played that role in your life. If you need more blocks, just be creative, write as much as you need to, but let's put those names in the blocks. Now, if we go back and look at where you are as the central figure, then to the right of your name, what we want you to begin writing is the names of any siblings. These are the folks that you grew up with. And again, siblings can be siblings by birth or siblings by this is the way that we were raised. Oftentimes in our community, we have play brothers and sisters, but the bonds are just as strong as a blood brother or sister. And so those people you can put on your chart as well. Then to the left of your name, what you're going to create and put are the any other significant others. Now, why do I say others? It might be right now someone who is serious in your life that you're dating. It may be a husband or wife, or it may also be an ex-husband or wife. If this person played a significant role in your life, we want to record those relationships because those relationships, when you are as close as someone who's in a romantic relationship, those people have an influence on us that is often lasting. And then in the row beneath your name is where you will write your children. And so you'll indicate your children, again, by birth, by election, stepchildren, whoever those individuals are, you will write those in the row beneath your name. And then finally, the row beneath children is where you would include your grandchildren. So this exercise, it's fairly simple, but when you have to explain it to someone with a chart that's pretty stagnant like this one, it's a little bit difficult. So if I go through it again, you're at the center with your name. Above you is any parents or parental figures. Above your parents, would it be any grandparents or grandparent-like figures? When you go back to where your name is, to the right of your name are going to be any siblings or people who were raised like your siblings. To the left of your name are going to be any significant romantic relationships. If the relationship resulted in a child, but it wasn't marriage, that's a significant relationship. And so we want you to include that to the left of your name. Beneath your name will be your children or people that you took on parental roles with. It may be a godchild. And then under that will be your grandchildren. If you run out of space, just get a new piece of paper and start again. But the key is to represent here the relationships that you have in your life, the people who exist. Now, for the purposes of this activity today, we're not going to go through and explain every relationship. But after today, it would be a really good idea if you go through and do with every name that's on that chart some things to identify who that person was and the role that they played in your life, whether the relationship was strong or weak, and things that come to your mind about that relationship. Remember, this is all about dissecting relationships that exist in your life, in your family, and how they have impacted you. So feel free to come back to this activity to really develop it later. But for this activity, we're going to really choose only 3 relationships that we are going to focus on. And looking at that chart, I really want you to identify the people who, perhaps 2 people who've had a significant influence on you, that they, whether good or bad, they have impacted you in such a strong way. And then the third person that you would indicate is just someone that maybe the relationship was never as strong as you wanted it to be. And we're going to dissect that as well. So 2 people that really, when you talk about your life, you say these people, maybe one in a good way, one in a bad way, these people really impacted me. But then I'm going to pick someone, maybe it's an estranged sibling that I never really had a relationship with. And that's going to be the third person that I'm going to focus on for the purpose of this activity. So what you'll do then is pretty much create a chart that's going to indicate, okay, the 3 people that you're going to work on, what is that person's name? Let's say if I decide to do my mother, then I would put my mother's name. Her title in my life, of course, is mother. And then I'm going to indicate the role that she played in my life. And so she was a guide for me. She was one who was my best friend at times. She was my confidant. Anything that I couldn't tell other people, I could tell her. So the things that I thought about her, the ways that I felt about her, the things that we did together, I really want to think those through, because roles can be very complex. The role that somebody played can be very different from the title, or it might be the same. But you want to really think about, what did that person do in my life? And with that being said, where is that person's and your relationship today? You could say it's really still a strong relationship, or maybe now we're distant for some reason, or perhaps, as in my case, that person is deceased. So I'm going to write down that the person is deceased. And then the last part is, what are your feelings about that? And that really is a chance for you to go really deep, because the fact that my mother was my confidant it's like a gaping hole became missing in my life when she left, because it wasn't as easy for me to share as much with anybody else. So my feeling is, it still pains me to think about the whole. Yet it also encourages me, because in recent years, my stepmother has kind of stepped into that role that my mother had. So she doesn't try to replace my mother, but many of the things that I did with my mom now happen with my stepmom. So this activity requires that you kind of go through and focus on all of these aspects of that relationship. And then the last thing to do is to come together in your small groups and really talk about what it is that you shared on that piece of paper. And so as you do so, I want you to talk about a couple things, the roles in the relationships that stick out, maybe things that, oh my goodness, I didn't realize how much I need this, or how much I needed that person, or how much I'm disappointed that this doesn't happen in that relationship. So we want you to think about that. We also want you to think about what and who are you missing. I remember doing this activity before and speaking of someone who is now deceased and realizing that that person played this protector role in my life. And it was this realization that I truly missed having someone to protect me. Over the weeks and days after, when I got a chance to really process that realization, what I found was that at the time in my life, I needed that person to protect me, but yet I had now developed the skills to protect myself. So even though I was missing that role, I had supplemented it by growing and developing myself, which was a beautiful thing to realize. When you think of those roles, I want you to think about, what would you like to change? Is there anything that you want to do differently? Maybe the way you perceive the person or the relationship with that person. And then the last thing I want you to think about is, what are the actions that you plan to take as a result of it? You know, what are your ahas from this experience? When you share as a small group, you're only going to choose you can choose one person to go in depth with, but then I want you to have the general conversation around these questions that are indicated, because this is about you realizing some things and deciding, what is it that I may need to do differently. We talked about your thoughts and your feelings, but now when it comes to action, what will I do differently? As always, remember, the way you process this activity is individual and specific to you. So whatever way you need to process it, you do that. And I think that when you hear other people's stories and you consider your own, some lights are going to go off in terms of what you want to do and how you want to do it. So have your conversations, and don't forget that it's all about you, not about fitting into some cookie cutter image of how this activity is to go. Good luck. All right, now that you've completed that, there's a couple of things that I'd like to point out for you. And that is that this is a great chance to just examine and to look and to reflect. And when we do that, oftentimes we find new meaning, and we find even deeper relationships with the people that are in our lives. You just have to decide, where do I start and when? And so pick one relationship or one role and take small steps to move to the place that you want to be. I go back to the fact that you are at the center of your family. And so because you're the only person that you can control, when you heal, when you make positive steps, when you make positive choices, it impacts people in your circle, in your family chart. And so it's not your responsibility to take care of everyone, but it's a beautiful thing when you know that when you grow, develop, and change, it could impact those who choose to do the same. And with this, I want you to take this perspective, and really this mandate is that you don't have to take on pressure. You can just simply look for opportunities to motivate yourself and others to learn, grow, and heal together. This isn't about doing something that's overwhelming to you, but instead to take a small step that can create big changes. Understand who you are in the perspective, in the whole scheme of things when it comes to your family, and understand who they are when it comes to who you are. Doing that will allow you to better appreciate and acknowledge what exists, and then determine and decide where you're going to take it as a result. Good luck in continuing to process this activity. As always, do it wholeheartedly. And if you do so, I think you will continue to learn in the days, weeks, and months ahead. Thank you.